All right, what's up? What's up? My apologies on the delay. I was trying to set up this to be able to live stream from my computer, but for some reason you gotta download all these things so you can be able to go live from your computer, which I feel like is crazy because I could just go live straight from my phone. Why can't I be able to do that from my computer? So peace and love, Barrett. So I came in with like a set something to discuss, like a set something to discuss, but for some reason, like every time that I'm I come in with an idea of something to discuss, like stuff happens in my life to where it's like, damn, now I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that. Like people send me videos and that gives me stuff to talk about, and stuff happens in my real life. So I kind of just want to get the real life thing out of the way. So my mom calls, uh, talking about my brother, that she doesn't understand his way of thinking about, because he keeps telling her that he doesn't want to work a 9 to 5, and she's got it stuck in her head that he's talking specifically about the hours, or he doesn't want to work for somebody, when I'm trying to explain to her that it's not that he doesn't want to work those specific hours or work for somebody, but my generation and the generation below me don't want to like recognize that the system that we're working for, the system that they push us into working for, is like, is not only is it corrupt, but we see like, all right, why would I work for this system when the record shows that it hasn't done shit for me? Peace, Sahar, peace, my love. So she she sees that, or he sees that, like, I and he's been into like the whole conspiracy, culture or whatever, and he recognizes these certain things. But what I see like about my generation, the little older generation, I don't know what they call us. We're not millennials. Well, I don't see myself as a millennial, but like we're right in that little gap between Generation X and millennial. We gotta make a little name for ourselves, because I don't like that term millennial, because we're not. The generation after me, I see them as millennials, and I kind of group my brother in that generation because he's a little bit younger than me, and he's a boy. So boys don't mature, and it's a fact. Boys don't mature as at the same rate as girls do. So I see him as a millennial generation, and I recognize why he says that he doesn't want to work for somebody, and especially when you kind of get into this type of knowledge, you see that if you go and work for Walmart, that you're kind of like perpetrating or perpetuating a cycle of the same system. Like, why would you work for these people when they're, contributing to the prison industrial complex? Let's just, give a broad example about that. But what people in my generation see is that we see that there's no real, like, probably now that there's like a few other avenues for us to go into, and maybe some of us have kind of gotten that financial capability to where we're able to build our own avenues. But before, there wasn't really much choice. Either you went and worked for the system, or you did the street thing. There wasn't really, it was too far in between whether you can sit there and build your own avenue, or work for or work with somebody who's kind of counter system or counterculture. So what our generation recognizes is that we have to use this system to our advantage while we still can, and use the system to kind of fund our own counter system. So people who started these so-called black businesses, they weren't always working for themselves or always working for this black business. They started working at what freaking, I'm gonna just keep saying Walmart. They worked at Walmart for so long until they were able to build, a little financial and discuss with their spouses, or even if they were by themselves, they're able to see, okay, well, I got this, and this in place. I'll be good for a couple of months. Let me go follow my passion and do what I want to do, to where, and I was trying to explain that to my mom, like, you can't expect us to continue to want to follow in the same trap and the same system of working for whoever, or working for this, or going to college and do that, when we are already born. The children who are born closer and closer and closer to this procession of the equinox are born inherently knowing, like, yo, I can't fit into this system. The system does not work for me. I was born to kind of change the system. I was born to be in another system. I wasn't born to fit into this box. And that's why you see what my mom's generation and them, sorry, he be scaring me when he's throwing stuff around, coming over here looking like he just did something. So what my mom's generation and them kind of see is they see it as, oh, we're lazy, or we don't want to work as hard, especially she's an immigrant, she comes from an immigrant family, or my mother came here with nothing, and she built up all of this, where, all right, we could recognize that and we see that, but we don't we were born already in the United States, and we kind of see that there's not much outside. Yeah, that time is definitely over. I don't know why Hannibal was trying to call me. I told him that I was going live. So we see that this system is not really working for us, and we're born not like pre-programmed not to fit into the system. So I was trying to explain that to her, like, you can't force your ideology of the immigrant ideology, or the ideology that you had back in the 80s or the 70s to us now, born in this millennium. So I'm trying to explain that to her, and she's sitting there getting frustrated. Well, there's other avenues to do this. He should work. I was like, I understand what you're saying, because that's what we're doing. We're using the system to further, because I don't plan to work for the system. I plan to do other things that kind of would just bring in the money for myself, bringing these fiat notes for myself, where it doesn't have to go to anybody else, where it just comes to us. We're using what we have to get what we want. But the generation before me the generation after us don't see that. They're born, as indigo children and stuff like that, but they still need the structure. And that's where we come in, as in our generation. We have to build the structure for them to see that, okay, you want to have this certain platform, or you want to have this certain avenue where you don't work for the system, but you also have to recognize that you do have to put effort in it, that it's not just going to drop in front of you. And my brother, he's kind of, not to put him on blast, but he's kind of moved to the street way. And the street way, we know how, we kind of know how that works. Like, the time that you put in, that money's going to you. It's not going to taxes. It's tax-free and stuff like that. So it's coming directly to you. But what he doesn't realize is that's still kind of falling into the system that he doesn't want to work for. Because what happens when you get caught? What happens when the money flow is not the same? Like, that 90s era was lit, but that type of money is over. Technology's taking over, and the whole structure is crumbling. That's why we got Trump. He's the scapegoat. I said dump Trump. Yeah, so that's true. Like, the time where you were able to carve out that niche and carve out that little, a lot of people don't see a way out of the system, so they stay in. Exactly. It doesn't matter which system, if it's the 9 to 5 work for the man system, or if it's the street system, it's still under one global system. Because even when you're working for the street, or working in the street, that you still kind of falling into that whole system of what they perpetuate. And like I said, in weed in Massachusetts is legal, and she kind of has like this this not double-edged sword, but this like hypocritical perception of weed being sold on the streets versus weed being sold in the dispensary. And I'm like, whether it's sold on the street or sold in the dispensary, it's still being sold, right? It's still being sold. It doesn't matter what avenue is being sold. And she's like, well, selling weed is not legal, using it is legal. I was like, okay, so where do these users get their weed? Don't they got to go somewhere to where they sell weed? And she's like, well, yeah, I would trust the dispensaries more than I trust the street weed. And I was like, you got that whole thing backward. You got that whole thing's backward. I would trust the street weed before I trust the legal weed. Because the street weed, like I said, I said this before mad times, you have to know your grower. And those who are in the dispensary are working for other, like, you mind? You mind, you? Nah? You don't? I'm sorry, I don't even know if y'all can hear me because somebody just wanna, every time that I go live, he just wanna come do some silly stuff like this. Here, eat this banana. Eat the banana. Leave that. I wanted to take down this little jumpy thing because he don't hardly use it. All he does is make noise with this little jumpy thing. And you notice he does it every time that I go live. That's what he does. He makes noise and causes trouble every time I go live. Wasn't you playing with your blocks? Go play with your blocks, Nugget. Or he'll play with those blinds, knowing he's not supposed to play with those blinds. Stop it. So, my issue with immigrants saying they came here with nothing is it is a falsehood. Their nothing is more than the vast majority of African Americans have. So, to touch upon that, right? So, yes and no, because we have to understand that I don't have to capital to pick up and move to France for a better life. I don't understand what that was just saying. My grandmother been retired for 10 years now. Her Social Security provides her $1,700 a month. Now I'm not the strongest strain of weed in the dispensary, but can you live off of $1,700 a month? I don't have the capital. Okay, same. So I don't have the capital to pick up and move to France for a better life. So a lot of these people didn't just got home after 16 hours. Well, take a load off, take a rest. You know, don't feel obligated to watch the stream. You can always replay it. But yeah, so I understand what you're saying, but a lot of these immigrants do save up like their entire life savings to move here. So they literally do come here with nothing. For instance, my grandfather, my grandfather, my father's side, my grandmother and them. So they came from Cuba, and I don't know how familiar y'all are with Castro and his regime, other than what has been portrayed on TV or in media or whatever. But and if you know anything about me or how I feel about Castro and stuff like that, that's set aside for right now. And what my grandfather had to do was work in a labor camp. And this was what I try to explain to a lot of people, and they say that it's slavery and da-da-da-da-da, and he was forced to do this. Peace, Hannibal. We talk later, preparing for teaching Moors tomorrow with his grace. Yes. Taj Tariq Bey's birthday coming up, so make sure y'all give him some birthday love. Yeah, so he went to, I can understand Cuba or Mexico. I'm talking about Africans. They don't swim over here. They took but like I said, that $1,500 flight is their life savings. And a lot of the times they're, like with my grandma on my mom's side now, because she's African, with my grandmother and grandfather, my grandfather had to come over here first, work over here and send money back towards after paying about 10K for a visa. They said they work over here and send money back, and you can tell, and a lot of Caribbean folks too. My husband, his father, came and left. So you have the man, and you have to remember, this is back in the day where, well, especially for my grandparents, this was back in the day where the man was the one making all the money. The women, and my grandmother never worked. She never really worked until she came into this country. The man was the sole provider, and they were the ones that were kind of making all the money. So you take the head of the household, and they're leaving to go to another country, and it's not always guaranteed that they're going to sit here and make money. That's why the immigrant argument, or the immigrant side, is very valid, because you have these people who come here. It's not guaranteed that they're going to make money, and then every dime that they do make has to go back. And this is what so-called blacks or African Americans have to kind of get a hold to. They have things called I don't know if y'all know what the susus, right? There are grants and programs for immigrants that we don't get here. 2 years business tax free, but not all of them make businesses. A lot of them, and especially in the Cape Verdean community and Latino community, they're working underground. That's why you see them all sitting outside a Home Depot, or especially in the Cape Verdean community, we have a very tight knit community where we know so and so back from and Cape Verde is an island. It's a small island, so you have pockets of islands where everybody knows each other. So when you have the men who are leaving these islands and going over to America, they're setting up to where people already know, so they're staying with other people who already been here. Like I said, it's a sense of community where African Americans had that sense of community, like during segregation, where if somebody did something, they were all together supporting each other. We don't have that now. We're always out for ourselves. We're always, oh well, the government, that community is currency we don't have. But I will stop trying. No, I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to discredit. I'm not trying to discredit or invalidate your argument or what you're saying, but I'm coming from firsthand experience of what I know from immigrants and from immigrations. Both of my parents are immigrants. It's 5 years they benefit off your Moorish birthright of tax exemptions amongst Jamaicans. Yes. So they have these things called susus, or whatever you call them in your culture, where they kind of pool together their money. But that's besides the fact. I know that my grandparents came here, they didn't start businesses. That's fact. Every immigrant that comes over here does not start a business so they can reap the tax benefits. They don't start the businesses. A lot of them come here with their trade that they've been at. My grandfather on my mom's side had the trade of being a carpenter and working with his hands. My grandfather on my dad's side was a musician. So when he came here, he was a musician first. He didn't do anything else. He went into music. He went to a band in Miami, and he was a band there, provided for the money. But like I said, when he left Cuba, it's not like he could pick up and leave. They literally had to leave everything that they had in Cuba. My grandmother and my grandfather couldn't bring nothing. They couldn't bring any of their furniture. They couldn't bring any of their jewelry. They couldn't bring any of their money. None of that. That had to stay in Cuba because of the regime change. And he had to work, I think it was like something like 3 years in a labor camp. They have brainwashed African Americans to floss on each other. Other groups come here with the group plan. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. We sit here and we say, well, they have all these advantages over us, when we don't take the advantages that we have here ourselves. Example, claiming the Moorish birthright, right? We rather sit here and subscribe to being colors and subscribe to being dual continents instead of subscribing to being who we are, to take advantage of what that means, right? Because to get these type of advantages, you have to associate yourself with the nation. So, like I was saying, he worked 3 years in the labor camp to be able to come over to the Americas. Meaning, he worked 3 years for free. For free. He did not get paid for those 3 years that he worked in the subscribing to crayons, right? He worked 3 years for free for Castro to be able to bring his family over to the Americas, and they came with the clothes on their back. On top of that, we've been taught the only advantage is to cut others like us to please white America. Exactly. So-called blacks in America have this mentality where you have to get over on your brother, or you have to move away from the community that you're in to be able to make it. Where others, because they have that sense of community, they have that sense of and the pride of being in their nation. So when they come here, that's why they move in groups. That's why Cape Verdeans, when they come here, they move to wherever the Cape Verdeans are. Cubans, when they come here, they move to wherever the Cubans are. Nigerians, when they come here, they move to wherever the Nigerians are. We are the only ones that want to be like, all right, here's where all my people is, but as soon as I make some cheddar, I'm gonna move across town or across the state to where the so-called white people are, to where the Europeans are, because that's going to show that I made it. That's going to show my community that you can make it, instead of investing. They call it hustling. Nah, homie, that's swindling your brother. How did he eat for 3 years? Where did he sleep? Mexicans will eat potato tacos, and go back and build 3 flat homes. But that's what I'm saying. It's like slavery, right? Divide and conquer. Yes, Europeans game to defeat the Moors worldwide, and we've been falling into that game ever since the Moors fell. We've been falling into that whole division game, right? So it's like slavery. You were asking, how did he eat? It's like slavery. How did the slaves eat? They were fed by the slave master. So he was fed by Castro because, like I said, Castro's whole thing is whatever you're making, whatever you're gaining, whatever your wages are, that's going to go towards the state, so everybody can be equal. And that's why that's the misconception that we have here. And this is what I say about to everybody about Castro, is when you have the best of intentions, you can have the best of intentions. It's a sound bar tactic. You can have the best of intentions, but when you have power, power corrupts. And when you have absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Castro's intentions, and you can tell for these so-called Afro-Latinos in Cuba, or the Afro-Cubans in Cuba, they praise Castro because the regime before him was kind of like an oligarchy or a so-called capitalist regime, to where the rich were the ones reaping the benefits and the poor wasn't. So Castro came in, Castro, took away all the colorism, took away all the racism, and said basically everybody is equal. That's what Castro came in trying to do. And like I said, my grandfather was a musician. So people in those type of fields, music, arts, any of those type of people, actors and stuff like that, they were the ones more prone to leave and flee because they didn't want their wages to be spread upon, because they're the one doing all the work, right? They're the one doing all the tours, but all their benefit does not go to their family, but it goes to everybody. It goes to everybody in Cuba. So versus when you have somebody who's a farmer, who's farming all this food to spread out to the people, it's basically the same thing. They're not going to be like, oh well, all this money that I'm reaping has to go to me, when they're basically feeding the populace. They're the one getting the shit end of the stick. Excuse my French. They're the one getting the shit end of the stick. So that was whole Castro's whole thing. And if you talk to people, the people that hated Castro were the ones that were making money, and whose money was being siphoned from their pocket to spread out to the poor people. The people who are poor, the people who are dark skinned, were the ones that praised Castro because Castro was actually doing stuff for them. And people like to talk all this so-called Black Power and Black Panther and stuff like that, and then talk down on Castro. But who gave Assata Shakur political asylum? Castro did. Who was out there when Haiti went from capitalist to communist? Exactly. You're going from two different extremes, and people don't look at things objectively. They always look at things emotionally and subjectively. Like I said, I'm directly connected to this. I know exactly what happened and what my family went through in Cuba, and they had every right to leave. My grandfather had every right to leave because that's what he didn't agree to. But you can't say just because I don't agree to it that you can discredit everybody else who is agreeing with the system. The people who stayed there agreed with the system. They didn't stay there because they were forced. They stayed there because they agreed with the system. Now, aside from all the the little nasty things that did happen, where it was happening under Castro's regime and it was happening under Batista's regime. The killing of homosexuals, and the imprisonment of homosexuals, and the imprisonment of people who spoke out. Like I said, when you have absolute power, it corrupts absolutely. We don't say anything about the prisoners that we have in Guantanamo Bay, the political prisoners that we have in Guantanamo Bay. No one wants to talk about that. No one wants to say that the same thing that was happening in Cuba under Castro is the same thing that happens here under Bush, the same thing that happened here under Obama, and the same thing that's going to happen here under Donald Trump. We have the same thing, but no one wants to say, look at it at the bigger picture. We just always want to point the finger at the bad guy. So when you're looking at the immigrants, people have, and this is what I was trying to say to my mom about my brother, is like everybody has their own way of trying to do stuff. You can't ever convince, just like when you're trying to convince somebody that they're not a color, you can't convince them. Only they can convince themselves. You can give them all the knowledge, but they're going to have to find it from themselves. They're going to have to read the books. True, but in America we have a disillusion of freedom. Yes, but why do we have that disillusion of freedom? Because we're ignorant to it, right? We're ignorant to it. We're not doing the studies. We're not putting forth the effort. We always want it to be fed to us. And when we want it to be fed to us, what we're going to be fed is misconception, misinformation, and deception. That's what we're going to be fed to us until we take the reins in our hand and try to do it ourselves, and try to read the books ourselves, and try to do the research ourselves. Subscribing to any and everything, yes, because it's easier to control a man who thinks he's free and can't see his chains. Exactly. So the same rhetoric we've been hearing all this time, right? The same rhetoric we've been hearing all this time is they took us out of physical bondage and put us into mental bondage. So again, you cannot discredit, you cannot invalidate anybody else's experience. The only people that you can do that to is yourself. You can only discredit and invalidate your own experience because you're in control of it. You're not in control of anybody else's experience. So my brother doesn't want to work a 9 to 5 because that doesn't work for him. You can't just say, oh, you're a bum, da 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 da. The immigrants come here and build up themselves. You can't say, oh, well, African Americans didn't get that opportunity. When African Americans been had that opportunity, but we're not the ones, we're the ones that to sit here and kind of blame everybody else instead of taking the responsibility for ourselves and looking at the facts like, okay, well, what would we call it before the 1500s? Why would we call that before the 1500s? What does that name associate with me? What does the crayon color associate with me? How does that affect my life? You know what I'm saying? We sit there and then we're pushed this narrative through every channel that we see, right? Not only on the social media channel, but in media. I was watching and to bring up to your immigrant thing, I was watching Barbershop, the one with Nicki Minaj, just because it was there on Hulu, and I don't have Netflix right now, so I'm stuck to watching Hulu, and Hulu doesn't have that great of a selection. So I was watching Kazam, I was watching Double Take, I was watching all these old 90s movies or whatever. So I was watching Barbershop because I hadn't watched it yet, and I'm sitting there, and just like I said, when you're kind of open and you're kind of woke to this whole stuff, you catch the little subliminals that they throw out in these movies, right? So for instance, the smallest subliminal that I saw, like, not the smallest, but it was a big one. Well, we didn't get those opportunities, but we didn't need it, but was taught we should seek it. I don't need to shop at Target. Carrots and potatoes will grow in the backyard. But see, this is what I'm saying. You're saying that you didn't get these opportunities, but like Hannibal says, and like many others says, that you are forfeiting these opportunities. You are forfeiting these so-called, these tax exemptions and stuff like that. You're forfeiting it when you're subscribing to I'm black, I'm African American, I'm Negro, da 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 da. You're forfeiting that. Yes, Sahar, I was one of the very small number of Moors who warned us in the 90s. Exactly, but we don't heed those warnings. Yes, we're consenting to it. We're consenting to, oh, you can't get this, or you can't get that, or, you can't get these type of things that are available to everybody else, because everybody else is subscribing to nations. They have constitutions. They have kind of They have treaties and stuff, opportunities, as in the good job, good pay, and the white picket fence. But why do we want that though? Like, and this is what my brother was saying. I don't want to work for this system. Why do we want to kind of assimilate to the system, and then sit there and talk about, well, the white man ain't do nothing for us, the white man ain't do nothing for this? That's dead. Exactly, that is dead. We have to kind of be able to go back to how we were during segregation, right? Where everything was against us. We talk about we had it bad now, but because they taught us that would make them love us. But why do we want their adoration? Why do we want their love? If we hate them so much, why do we want them? And that's what I'm saying. We are so confused as a people. We talk about, oh, the white man hate us, the white man do this, but we sit there and want to do stuff to kind of get some type to impress them, to get their adoration, to get their love, and we don't need that. We do not need their validation. What we need to do is kind of pool our resources together and get ourselves to validate each other. Forget about the white man loving us. Do we love ourselves? Do we love ourselves enough to kind of separate from that system? Because that would validate our pain. But again, why do we need it to be validated? Everybody knows about slavery, right? Everybody has been taught about slavery. We know about that. Again, we don't need it, but a lot of black people want it. Why though? And that's the question that we have to get down to. Why do we need them to validate the experience that we already know as a people happened? We already know slavery happened. We already know we're at a disadvantage. We already know that. That's like somebody in the handicap Olympics talking about, oh, I'm handicapped and I need this and I need that to be. We already know. You are an atomic bomb, cherub. You will get stateside and build, and I will have you close to me to teach others. Give thanks, Hannibal. Nope, black people don't know about slavery, and that's why. What's up, Martinez? Y'all hear that? I don't know if that's like a drill or something. I don't know what that sound is. But it be scaring me. I'd be like, yo, North Korea going in right now. So a lot of black people, you say, don't know about it. So why is it that every time that we come into some type of conversation, black people think slavery was picking cotton and singing songs? So what was slavery then? What was slavery? Because to my knowledge, every time when I see one of these, it's everywhere, Martinez. It's everywhere. We don't know about the slaves fighting for their freedom, but we do. We know about the Nat Turners, and we know about all the slave revolts. What we do is we focus on slavery. Like I said, I was watching Barbershop, and they brought this up. So you had the one Indian brother in the barbershop, and he's sitting. Why? He's sitting there talking about, oh, my parents, I be pissed when I come in late. It's all right. Why would you do that? You kind of hurt yourself, Nugget. So he was sitting there talking about the oh, you stink. All right, I gotta take a little break. See, this is the problem about doing this live when he's awake. I gotta go change his diaper. I'll be right back. Come on. You stinky butt. You got a stinky butt. Oh, stinky booty boy. Why your butt stink, Nugget? Why your butt stink, Nugget? Why your butt stink? so much better on strictly breast milk. You got the big boy poops. You got the big boy poops. Mommy's funny. Mommy's funny though. All right, my apologies, peeps. World slaves could work for free to free themselves. We were slaves at birth. We were bred like cattle. All right, let me pull back some of this stuff. There's a lot going on. We don't really know what they did to us. We only know what they admitted to. We have the true story in our blood. Change and diaper break. The world suffered slavery at one time. Nobody else but our people stay enslaved through consenting to it. It hurts to say it, but it's the truth. We have to get away from colors. They are adjectives. You are a noun. Barrett, the slavery we were under was not the slavery of the world. World slaves could work to free themselves. We were slaves at birth. We were bred like cattle. Our people are not black. We are Asiatic if describe the race. We are Asiatic if described. All right. So I just caught up on the things that you said. I don't know if y'all heard me back there, but that little boy got some grown man poops. I gotta stop feeding him solids. He be eating. And that's a vegan poop too, cause he don't eat meat. And I'm making it say like that. He don't eat meat or anything like that. He got the vegan poops, and them joints be stanking. He got the veggie, and he had veggies, chickpeas, potatoes, rice and beans last night, and that joint, I think it was the beans or something, because that was, woof. All right, back to what y'all was saying. At the point of slavery, right? So, and this is, a lot of people kind of like to, and I think Barrett kind of touched upon this and kind of made the point. The poop of his ancestors. It was the beans. So, and this is the problem with what I have, the whole slavery is slavery thing. Because yes, the rest of the world did go through slavery. Why we call it the transatlantic slave trade, when it used to be called the African slave trade, right? But then they changed it to the transatlantic slave trade, and nobody really, nobody was really hip to it. Nobody seen why they called it the transatlantic slave trade. And they called it the transatlantic, They called it the transatlantic slave trade. Not really a slap in the face. It's not the same as having your arm cut off. So listen, right? They called it the transatlantic slave trade because it wasn't solely Africans that were traded during that time. It was people, all types of people, Indians, any of the Melanesians. They changed it because we found out they took us from here to Africa and then brought us back. So the whole thing about slavery is uprooting the people and putting them in a different, like you wouldn't have as much success as keeping a slave who knew the land, right? So that's why when the slave trade did happen, you were capturing all the indigenous and aboriginal Americas from the Americas. You were shipping them down to the Caribbean. You were taking Africans, you were bringing them over to the Americas. It was crisscrossing all over the place. We only see that little map where it's, taking them here, going from Europe, going to Africa, going from Africa. It's all about disorientation, right? So we all did this, right? Even the Europeans suffered through slavery. We took them from Europe, we brought them into Africa, and da-da-da-da-da. The difference about how slavery affected Americas, right? Mediterranean slavery, exactly. There's slavery everywhere, and pretty much every so-called race had experienced and had affected, yes, the triangle. That it shouldn't be a triangle, it should be a haphazard squiggles all over the place, because that's what was going on. And it, like many are starting to uncover, it's not the way that they've been telling us. It's not the way that they've been telling us, as all these millions of Africans were shipped over here, and so on and so forth. It was crisscrossing. You had so-called blacks, trading other blacks or other Africans. You had Arabs in it. You had the Dutch and the Spanish, Portuguese. All it's not just one. When we think of slavery, we always think of the British for some reason. When you ask somebody who's not really educated in this, it's, oh, the British were the ones that did slavery. The British were the ones. It was the white British or the UK that were the one that perpetrated slavery. When it was a whole bunch of people, and it wasn't just race traders or slave African traders who did this. They were the ones who were also trading Europeans. Europeans were one of the first slaves here in the Americas. I keep saying here like I'm there with y'all. I'm there with y'all in spirit. Europeans were the first slaves in the Americas, right? The difference between all the other slave trades and what happened here, what happened specifically in the United States, was in the United States we continue to subscribe to being slaves. The Irish, yes, the Irish were one of the first European slaves here, but like it wasn't solely just the Irish, because that's what we've been told is just been the Irish, but it was many Europeans who were captured, in Jose Pimenta Bay goes into this, right? Many Europeans who were captured during wars or were traded simply because there wasn't a single currency like how we have the dollar, right? How we have the dollar now, where the dollar is kind of, the world global currency, where it's accepted everywhere and people trade that and everywhere. There wasn't a single currency. What the currency was bodies. If you needed guns to protect your village, you were going to give up captives. You were going to give up your captives. And at that time, and this is how we're going to touch on Africans selling other Africans, right? They subscribe to tribalism and different tribes. So we have a tribe here, again, the division, where we don't see that we're all one people. And this is what the Moors were trying to do. The Moors were trying to tell everybody, like, yo, we all one people. We need to kind of get together and kind of form this kind of, united front against these people who are going to come in here and divide us. But we subscribe to tribalism. The Irish were given the opportunity to earn their freedom. Hold up, right? Hold up, we're gonna touch back on that, right? So the Moors were in Africa trying to unite people, but we had tribalism trying to, okay, well, you're not part of my tribe, you're not part of my village. Wow, I was talking about this today. Crazy, yes, the tribes sold their captives, yes. So the tribes had captives. They traded them to buy guns. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't have any idea of that, because we're talking a huge continent. We're talking about before internet. We're talking about before newspaper. We're talking about before telephones. We're talking about all of that. So people were really super secluded in their knowledge. They were really ignorant in their knowledge. So you're selling these captives to go God knows where, because you want to get guns to protect yourself against other tribes. Where the Moors were in Africa, like, yo, you need to chill with this, chill with that. We need to kind of get under this whole one banner, one flag, one constitution type thing. But people wasn't trying to hear that, because they was slaves. we were sitting there subscribing to tribalism. We were sitting there subscribing to village. We only cared about, and this is how further along, how the Moors became defeated in Europe, right? Because we were sitting there in division. We were fighting each other, just like how they were doing in Africa. They were fighting each other, just like how they started to do in America. So we started to buy into this whole thing. Well, these people were better. The Europeans was dying by the thousands on their way over here too. I mean, if you think about it, if we believe how we were transported over here the way that they do, I just asked a few days ago, why do we never hear the Africans talk about the ancestors who got kidnapped or who went missing? Actually, in Ghana, they kind of recognized, I don't know if this was last year or the year before that, they, kind of made like an apology to so-called African Americans about their ancestors selling them into slavery. So we're doing the same thing today. We're fighting each other. Yes, and that's how we always lose, because we sit there in fight with each other. Well, you're the Negro in the house, and if I just listen to Massa and, if I listen to what Massa says, I'll be good, my family will be good. We always think about, ourselves and our family. And I'm not saying to not do that, but there are people who look beyond the Black Plague almost wiped out Europe. Why did they have the Black Plague? But that's a whole nother topic. Why they had the Black Plague? Because they don't know how to wash, and they didn't know about sewer systems and all that stuff. So you have people saying the Europeans were replaced because of their laziness and life expectancy, and probably because they were being burnt up by the sun. So right, so you have these people who are solely involved with, oh, this is my family, I got to worry about my family, I got to worry about my own, not knowing that what family is the basis of what a nation is. And what a nation is what the I don't mean a broad acknowledgement, I mean Uncle Red went for water and never came back. I see a comment there, so I'm thinking you're going to continue on with that comment. But we sit there and we kind of just like, all you cherubs are so sharp on the hidden history. It really warms my heart. I love you. We love you too, Hannibal. See, what a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people in this conscious community feel like their words fall upon deaf ears, which a lot of the time it does. But there's a lot of us out here who kind of soak this up and who are willing to do their own research to verify it. We're not sitting there, just sitting there and be told, or listen to the Breakfast Club and oh, that they said that on the Breakfast Club, so it must be true, or listen to it on a movie like The Barbershop. So they said it on The Barbershop. They said it on a big movie. Ice Cube, had a hand in it, so it got to be true. We kind of just like to sit there and be fed, this kind of knowledge and just run with it. We don't want to do our own research. We don't want to read the books that people are putting out there for us to read. We'd rather sit there and watch them on YouTube or whatever platform, listen to them on the radio and kind of just soak it up and be like, all right, well, this is the truth. Well, it very may well be the truth, whatever they're spitting, right? But you're not going to be able to 100% say that it's the truth until you do it, the research yourself. Like I said, I don't do the stuff that I can't convince you of anything. You got to convince yourself. Just like the same way these people shouldn't be able to convince you of anything. You're the one that has to do the research to convince ourselves. You have to do the research to convince yourself. So when you have people sitting there solely thinking about, well, my family this, my family that, but you're not seeing the whole bigger picture about other people. What's supposed to be a period? Oh, but I mean the personal account. Not we know this happened to people we didn't know. I mean, who are you talking to? Shut up, Barrett. Who are you talking to, though? That's what I'm saying. Who do we talk to? What immigrants are you talking to? What Africans are you talking to? Because I know, I was very, very, very good friends with this older woman from Ghana. God rest her soul. She passed away a couple of years ago. I was very, very good friends with her. She was an older woman. I used to work at a daycare, and I feel like that's really wrong to say. Like I'm holding back tears looking back on the struggle we went through back in the early 90s. It shows it paid off. Yes, Hannibal, it definitely is paying off. And there's a whole group of us of this newer generation. That's why I said we, as in our generation, we have to take what the elders have given us and build the structure for the generation that's coming up, because the generation that's coming up has all the potential, right? They're like like student athletes. They have all the potential, but they don't have none of the structure. So you can have all this potential to be the greatest basketball player, but if you don't have a coach who is going to sit there and push you and give you the fundamentals and tell you, this is how you do this and this is how you do that, it doesn't matter how much potential you're going to have. There's so many of our brothers and sisters out there with all this potential that they had who are lost to colors, who are lost to the system because they didn't have anybody to look up to who could speak to them, right? That's the key. Like my mother can't speak to my brother because they're coming from too much of a generational gap, right? They come into too much where she's based solely upon her culture, and her culture told her, well, the parent is always right, no matter if they're wrong. I know Nigerians. I was in Africa in the early 2000s in the Navy. The race conversation was almost about how most African Americans are lazy and stupid. They started that 400 years of African something. I meant to break that down. I'm going to revisit that this weekend. Well, see, and I'm not saying that there's not Africans who do believe that, right? But like I was saying, I worked at a daycare, adult daycare, where all these older people. Man, if I ever meet any one of you, I'm going to have a big hug for each of you. Hannibal says he's going to hug all of y'all. So I hope you say one of those for me, Hannibal. So at this adult daycare where, all these, older folks, and I learned a lot. So I was talking, there was a lot of Europeans there, and adversely, there was a lot of Africans, surprisingly. I think there was a woman from Nigeria. The one that I was really close to was from Ghana. We had kind of like a nice good mix, and that's because we were closer to the city. So, anyways, I was talking to her, and we were talking about kind of history because she liked that I kind of still stimulated her mind even though she was getting older. So we were talking about our history and stuff like that, and she was saying how she knows people like personally whose forefathers or great grandparents or whose ancestors are the ones who kind of went into the slave trade and did this, and she recognized. So it's just like the same way here in America, right? We have those who are aware of what's going on, who are conscious of themselves, and we have those who don't. Same as in Africa. They have been conditioned by colonialism the same way that we have. We think that just because they're on the continent of Africa that it didn't touch them, that they still have their culture, but we still have to understand that their culture is affected by colonialism, because at one point in time Africa, and it still was divided among the European powers. So you had Dutch Africa, you had French Africa, you had British Africa, you had I think maybe it was Spain. Spain was the only one that didn't get a piece. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Spain was the only one that didn't get a piece of Africa like that. So it is a shame, like here, where a lot of African Americans don't dig deep and see where it actually affected them from. Yes. But what I'm saying is, when it comes towards slavery, where I totally agree that the slavery that was continued here in the Americas, not started here, that was continued here in the United States, the Spaniards were Africans. Yes, the Spaniards were Moors. But what I'm saying is, as the European powers who went to Africa and divided it up between each other, it was the Dutch, it was the French, and it was who else did I say? The Dutch, the French, the Dutch and the French, the Germans, the Dutch, the French, the Germans were in there. I think those were the three powers. It was called the African Company. I think those are the three main ones that went up and divided Africa up like that. I gotta really dig back because there's so much going on up in my head. Sometimes the pieces get jumbled. I mean, that's why they didn't get a piece of Africa. No, the reason why I think they didn't get a piece of Africa, them and Portugal, is because they had their pieces here in the Americas. The whole below, when you look at the Americas, right? Huge continent. Majority of that continent belonged to Spain. Majority of the continent belonged to Spain, from the border of Mexico all the way down. And then you had the huge chunk of Brazil, which Brazil is huge. You had that huge chunk of Brazil belong to Portugal, but Portugal was a smaller power compared to Spain, compared to Spain. So the Spaniards are the ones that held a whole bunch of land here. So, and this is me going into the shoes of the European, right? So it was only right that since Germans, yes, the British, that's who I forgot that I said before. So the Germans, the British, the Dutch, and the French were the ones that sat there and controlled Africa. So that's why you still have, people like in Ghana where they speak French. Their national language is French. Portugal too. Portugal too. Yes, Portugal too was definitely in. I don't know how I can just skip over Portugal when Portugal was the one that colonized Cape Verde. Portugal is the one that colonized Angola, where my mom is from. So yes, Portugal is in there too. So you have these European powers dividing up that continent as if it was a slice of cake for them to divide up. So when we sit there and we look at Africans, English is one of the five. You're talking the white stripes on the American flag. Ooh, Hannibal about to go deep. The red is the number of wars the Europeans needed to defeat you Moors. So when you had them divided up, you can't say that, even though Africans like to say that so-called African Americans are not in tune with their culture, they have to realize as well that their culture, their culture, their culture has also been shaped by colonialism, because just like how you have in Angola and Cape Verde, their culture was shaped. Yes, Hannibal's always dropping gems, and he does it from his heart. Hannibal is a true, I mean, that's why I love you, Hannibal. So you have all these people who are kind of dividing up and had that cultural imposition, I want to call it cultural imposition, because it was imposed on Africans. And they also too have to recognize, they have to humble themselves to not say that you weren't untouched by colonialism. And a lot of Africans do recognize that, but again, it's the same here it's the same in the Americas. There are people who recognize it, there are people who know their history, there are people who are conscious of their history, and then there are people who are not. So when you go talk about American slavery, all things have a symbolic meaning. Exactly. Because the language of the universe is symbols. Not like how some people like to say that it's math, because the language of the universe is not math. The language of the universe is symbols, and that's how we are taught things. When you're given symbols, the subconscious mind is the one that takes those in and breaks it down and is the one to formulate things. Okay, well, this is an equation, or this is a musical scale, this is the notes on a musical scale, or these are shapes. Those are symbols that we get. And that's the way that the universe, and that's when people, to go all the way left, how we talk about, reaching out to extraterrestrials and stuff like that, and trying to get back a message. The message is not going to come in the form of how we know it to be. It's going to come in the form of symbols, and it's going to come in the form of codes and equations and stuff like that, all symbols. So to deviate, I went kind of all the way left there, but to deviate back into the slavery topic and how it's affected us, is we were kind of, pushed into this notion of forgetting who we are, right? Because once you take a couple of generations, right? You take the children, and this is what happened in an American slave trade, right? Where we moved pieces of the family. So, we took the dad over here, we took the mom over here, we took the children over here, so they weren't able to translate or to explain to their children who they really are, right? So their children are growing up listening to what the slave master is telling them, and therefore they're losing their history, because the history at that time was only oral. Was oral, of how we can teach this, right? Because we already lost the fact of the language, and man, y'all cherubs are heavy. It takes 100 years to change the minds of a group of people. It could take even shorter if you know what you're doing. Shit, it was slavery before the Europeans got here. Our ancestors screwed up by getting in bed with the devil, though. Well, see, and this is what Rosmariah Bay says when she says that the Americas was the land of the milk and honey, right? Because as I kind of touched upon a little bit, the Moors were warring on the other side of the of the other side of the world, right? They were warring up in Europe and they were warring in Africa. Here though, it wasn't. We don't see it evidence as much as them warring here, right? It wasn't until you come up closer to when the Europeans came, as where we see, the Incas going against the or the Mayans going against the Aztec, and so on and so forth. But when you talk about the Aboriginals, they majority of the time had lived in peace here because we were coming over, and this is if you read what's the word what's the book? They were here before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima, right? That they were there's so much evidence saying that we've been here before the slave trade. The Africans were been coming over here before the slave trade, and vice versa. Where you can see cocaine in the mummies of Egypt, where the coca plant was specifically here, and I keep saying here. I'm gonna keep saying here. So boom, here in the Americas, right? Cocaine was a plant that was natural to the Americas. There were a lot of natural bodies that acted as barriers between the nations. Exactly. So you didn't have as much warring and as much division as you did over in Europe until again you see the Europeans come over here, and whenever the Europeans come out, they always be putting little bugs in people's ears to say, well, we're going to align ourselves with this nation and this tribe, and we're going to put the power behind this nation and this tribe. Remember, the looming processes were the same I shared with you with the Americas and Africa. What are you talking about, Barrett? The looming processes. I don't know what you're talking about. Remind me, because like I said, I got a lot of stuff going up on here, and sometimes it flitters to the back of my mind and it'll stay there until it's ready to be dusted off. So yes, so we had the Europeans put the bug in our ears here and pit us against each other, just like they did, or just like they were waiting to happen in Europe, just like they did in Africa, and like they do everywhere else. They take one side and say, you're better. They take light-skinned people and say, you're better than these dark-skinned people. And then, boom, that's all you need to do is plant the seed, plant the bug, and just sit back and watch it happen. The divide and conquer tactic. And that's what we continuously happen. Look where the major war tribes were, plains and the flatlands. But look at who influenced those major war tribes, though. Look at who influenced. And when we think about Native Americans, we're solely looking at it. We are introduced to Native Americans. I forgot who said this. We are introduced to Native Americans the same way that the Europeans introduced, from the coast, the East Coast on forward. We do not have the knowledge of the Native Americans pre Spanish colonization. We don't have any knowledge of that. And if you look at the knowledge of that is out there, that we have so many researchers, European and more European, more and Asiatic alike, right, that are sit there and uncovering all this knowledge about these people. We can see that, all right, these certain traits of what we call warring and peaceful Native Americans didn't happen until the European colonizers came over here, right? If you and I think they came before Columbus, or it might be the first Africans were black by David Imhotep. I forget which book it was. Most of these tribes were wiped out, aka enslaved and transported to Europe and Africa, right? I think it was the first Americans were Africans by David Imhotep, where he states that we had the African presence here in America, and those Native Americans, the Native Americans that we see now, were like the Mongols came over the Bering Strait, and they were the ones that were warring for us, right? The Lakota talk about it in one of their ancient, but a lot of stuff like this we can only piece together by the little bit of knowledge has, because same as how they did in Timbuktu, same as how they did in Alexandria, same as how they do everywhere, they take our knowledge and they destroy it, so we don't have any concept of it. We only have to go based upon our brain, right? And the little pieces that are left, and we have to put those pieces together. So it's a long road, and I can see how people just want to be spoon fed this stuff, because it's very those on reservations are Sheminites. Horace Butler book, When Rocks Cry Out, expounds on the biblical reference of Exodus. Those were wars. So exactly. So all these little pieces that we have to put together, and I can understand why people want to be spoon fed this knowledge, because it's a lot of work. I am shocked no one has made a survival show where they ride the currents back to Africa, because they would tell you, and a lot of again, a lot of these people like to think that, oh, it was such a hard journey across the ocean, because how can canoes make it over here, when the Africans knew, and so did the people in America. But again, like I said, this is ancient knowledge that they knew about this stuff. It wasn't just, sprung up from Kemet. It wasn't just sprung up from the Mayas. Ancient knowledge. Going back to Atlantis, going back to Lemuria, we knew about this earth. We knew, and that's why when you see all these maps of how can they know how what the world looks like if they were only here in this certain, because we had the knowledge already. The knowledge was already here, and a very few groups of people knew about it. The Illuminati, right, and the Masons. Those are the ones that had the group of that had the knowledge. And I wouldn't say hoard the knowledge, because at that time you couldn't release this knowledge out without looking, or without saying, yo, you're a demon, or you're a witch, or you're whatever they wanted to label you as that, right? You're part of the occult, when the occult was nothing other than merging science and merging spirituality, right? That's when you go to the base of it. That's what occultism is. But we take the word occultism and we give it the connotation of that's evil and that's demonic, or you're a Satanist if you're a Mason, and you're part of the 13 bloodlines if you're part of the Illuminati. We've been so misconceived with all these words and stuff like that, when we don't even really know the definition of the words, same as we don't know the definition of the word black. Why do you like taking off your socks, Mug? Your feet all cold. So again, we have to be the ones to do, the in-depth research. We're the ones that have to put in the work. We can't sit there and wait for people to spoon feed it to us. The knowledge was here and it was broadly known. It took them a long time to wipe it out. That's why hints of it only being found in untouched part of the planets. I wouldn't even say untouched part of the planets, but part of the planets that have been set, like if you go into research the Grand Canyon, right? So if you look at the Grand Canyon, people might think, oh, I can just travel anywhere in the Grand Canyon. I can go hike anywhere in the Grand Canyon, when there is many parts of the Grand Canyon that are off limits, that people aren't allowed to go, and people aren't allowed to go there because there are hidden truths there. Untouched meaning where the Europeans can't make it to. Oh, even that too, right? Even that too. Deep parts in the Congo. Even still, a lot of Africans ain't even been into the deep parts of the Congo. And again, this goes to the very small circle of people who have this knowledge. So, going on to another subject. Like when I was little, caught a snake and my mom whipped my ass and she made me go to Bible study for the rest of the year. I was like, Satan, take the wheel. But see, and that's what we've been conditioned to do, or that's what the generation before us has been conditioned to do, where they see things as black and white. See, even Nugget's laughing at you. Even the Nugget's laughing. Catholic school was paying for. Oh, I know. I was in it, but like I said, you gotta take the good from everything. You hear him? He's having a fit. Uh-huh. He was laughing. So, boom, that was that. Um, the slavery thing, it was hurtful to us, but we gotta. uh, his dad is afraid of snakes, so it's not cool. It's not cool there. It's crazy because I would think whites would admit to Africans' role in slavery to take some guilt off of them, but they don't. Symbolism is not the real thing. You're right. The Holy Kharbeth, it talks about sacred areas in the canyon. There are records there of very ancient history. Exactly. It was said that there was some Europeans who went into one of these ancient caves, and they saw, artifacts from ancient Kemet. They saw, Buddhas. They saw a giant Buddha in there. That's a whole, little conspiracy theory, if you want to call it, on its own. What's hidden in the Grand Canyon, and what's hidden in a lot of places. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things. The Grand Canyon blew my mind. That sent me on my journey. But yeah, I had a post about it on Instagram too. But to touch upon what Martinez brought up about the Europeans not saying anything. Yes, the pyramids. About Martinez saying the Europeans not giving credit to the Africans. They would have to give too much information, and that would give their game away. They need us to believe that we are just like wild animals, half naked, roaming the plains of Africa. Well, not even that, but then they would have to, just like, why wouldn't they want to say that they were enslaved? So-called Egyptian hieroglyphics on the walls, the U.S. government don't want you to know it. Exactly. They're so, even here in America, right? Which gives credibility to these Aboriginal Americans saying, well, this is where civilization first started, and then it moved over to Africa. There are things older here than that. But like I said, if you're going to dive deep into that, then you have to leave open the possibility of Atlantis. You have to leave open that possibility, right? Of that actually being a place, because that is one of the reasons why you have Atlantis and Lemuria, which predates Atlantis, is those are the reasons why you have those type of structures dotted across the globe. It's not like we sprung up in America or we sprung up in Africa. We sprung up in a completely different continent that's no longer visible to us right now. That's the real hidden gem. That's the real hidden secret, right? That people don't want to dive into, because they'll kind of move away from the realm of this is being a logical discussion or debate, and they don't want to move it into Atlantis, because Atlantis seems kind of mythological when there's been so many records of the continent of Atlantis. They have always wanted to find the proof that African civilization was based on some lost white tribe, but then until then, history has to start in Greece. Well, even if you look at Greece hints to everything that they ever learned in Greece. They learned from Kemet. They learned from the Kushites there, right? They learned from older, more knowledgeable civilizations, and those people who are the Kushites, who are the Kemites, all of them have learned from older civilizations before that. When we came to this planet, we arrived here on Amugia, now called America. So again, when we talk about, you're right, they love the power they get off of it. Exactly, because if they tell us, well, Africans also captured Europeans and stole them, it doesn't fit their narrative, right? It doesn't fit that, it would suggest that the Africans weren't some type of jungle bunnies. They weren't, the ones sitting there with lion flaps and stuff like that. Even a lot of, ancient, or not ancient, but older, descriptions and older journal entries and stuff like that. That's exactly why you have to watch what you subscribe to. Caribs equal savages. They only imagine us. They want us to believe when our ancestors were major contributors of the world. Craig. The Craig. And yet that is not what mass is taught in school in Europe. Lemuria, Pan, Atlantis, Mu, all ancient Lemurian civilizations. But exactly what people have to understand, Hannibal, is they look at those as myths, right? It's mythological, just as the Dogon tribe and their creation story about people visiting them from a different planet. We all say that that's mythological, that it's, these savage people can only describe what they want to say in the terms of myth, when these same savage people built civilization, built pyramids, built all these things what they like to attribute to aliens and stuff like that, when it was actually really us. And we like to say that, oh, this is the only way that they're able to describe things. Same with the folklore, right? But all grouping into myth, because myth, instead of folklore, where you're taking something, a story, and you're giving a moral out of it, we're saying myth is just something completely out of the realm of possibility, and it's only used to describe because these savages couldn't describe it in modern terms the way that we'll be able to understand it. Like these people can just come out of nowhere, and like the I think the Bhagavad Gita in Hindu, where in Hindu religion, where they describe basically really advanced warfare. They describe nuclear weapons. They describe many of the things where we see today, where we can say that that's a fighter jet dropping bombs, but they saying a chariot, with fire coming from it, but we would say that they found some going too fast. They found some pyramids and the cow statue in the Gulf right next to the Yucatan Peninsula. I believe that's shut. The problem is so-called black scholars look at it as myth, but Europeans take notes and dig in to find your ancient relics. But most myths have a moral story embedded in it, the story of cause and effect. See, myths, because folklore is the ones that have the moral of story. Myths are completely just fabrications, or what they like to say is just fabrications, right? There's no moral story. It's just purely entertainment is what the myth is. Like your gods, of Greece, right? How you talk about Hercules, and how you talk about Zeus, and how you talk about Medusa, the Norse gods, the Roman gods. These are what we call myths, mythological. That it's exactly out of the realm of possibility. There could be a moral, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is just entertainment as a pastime, like how we say Santa Claus is, right? We tell our kids about Santa Claus, because we want them, they all have a moral. Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't have a moral, but the point of a myth is not to convey a moral. That's the point of a folklore. The folklore is a story that the point is to convey a moral. The point of a myth is strictly entertainment. Right? That's what we're saying. The point of the myth is strictly entertainment, where there could be a moral, there could not be a moral, but and they were Ethiopians. Who? The Greeks, that's what you're talking about, were Ethiopians. Allegories, yes. Allegory, again, those are folklores, but when we're talking about myths, we're talking about strictly entertainment. That's like, what's a good example? Barbershop, right? It's based on true events, but down the line, right, we can say that the barbershop was a myth, that there was no such thing as the barbershop. There was no such place that so-called blacks can go and discuss things. There was no such place as that. That's what the myth is. Chariots of the gods. Hell yeah, Zeus and them. That's why they had locks, right? When you look at Zeus and you look at all of them, they had locks. Thor and Odin are you, the next degree above mine, the 34th degree, Knights of Scandinavian gives respects to them. So you can tell your boy Brendan that even his Norwegian folks, his Scandinavian folks are also Moors, right? Because that's what we all are, right? Screenshot. So yes, but going back, kind of like went full, not circle, but we did like a little spiral. We did like a little spiral of things, with the slavery topic, right? And how I was saying how in barbershop we kind of look to these movies and these medias as this what they're saying can't possibly false. It has to be true because it's in a movie that 100,000 people, 100 million people are gonna see. So they talking about, oh, your parents came from India, our people were here, we were black and we were slaves here, and that's where it started. And he even goes to say, oh, this is how the West Indies started, was they took Indians and they took black people and we gave y'all Rihanna. The Horus, Osiris, Isis is etc. are given respect on the 96th degree in Freemasonry. So Hannibal's dropping a whole load of gems, a whole load of knowledge out here. So yeah, so again, they're perpetrating false narratives, and we sit there and we soak it up, and we think that is true just because Ice Cube said in his movie. And even so, the little info Hannibal drops will send you on a journey of research for hours. Yes, yes, it will. Rihanna, how the hell Rihanna get into this? That's what I'm saying. Everything is all connected. Rihanna got a whole niche in this whole thing. But yeah, but what I was saying is he said that the Indians and the Africans, like as if native indigenous people, that like this whole continent over here was just empty. Like, I don't understand how people can believe that this whole continent of the Americas was just empty, and the reason why it's populated is because we shipped Africans over here and they mated with everybody else. Googling as we speak. So good. See, Hannibal, you dropping the gems and people is just running with it. That part, yes, that part where and he perpetrated, oh, the West Indies are because we took Indians and Africans and we mixed them together, where we're just going to forget about the whole native people. We're going to forget about the Spanish, right? Because the Spanish were here first. Were like the first colonizers over here. That's why in every Caribbean, whether it's a colonized later on by the British, whether it was colonized later on by the French. If you look at from Jamaica to Trinidad to Grenada to the Bahamas, there are always Spanish names that are names of cities. So in Jamaica, you have Ochos Rios, right? Jamaicans aren't Spanish. Jamaicans don't speak Spanish, but you have a city in Jamaica called Ochos Rios, right? So you can find this everywhere. That's because it was remnants of the Spanish who were here first. We are going to forget about every found group of dark people with Afrocentral. Yes, exactly. And we're going to say, I did the math and reference through several books, 300,000, 400,000 Negroes went to North America. Freemasonry was butchered by the Europeans. They love to say that they don't recognize and list black lodges, but we should. Their watered down shit is what we subscribe to. 205 million total, 300 years. Well, I think even Jose Pimienta Bay went into this, but again, from the interview that I read, or the interview that I watched, the interviewer said that there were 2 trips a year, and then he kind of added up how many boats or how many ships that all these European countries had. And that's North and South America. They low-key worship our history. Yo, Martinez, you coming at me. No, Martinez is saying that the Europeans have watered down Freemasonry. They just don't want us to know about it. Martinez is saying that they watered down Freemasonry, and then we sit there and eat it up, right? We gobble it up that Freemasonry is something that the Europeans created, that the Illuminati was something that the Europeans created, and that it's all Satanism. That's all it is. When again, when you look at the occult was just looking, because everything was based upon the Catholic religion, or the Catholic aspect, because the Holy Roman Empire is, and that's who Spain is, that's who Italy is, that's who all these countries are. It's just remnants of the Holy Roman Empire. The 33rd degree is the highest degree, right? Yeah, bro, they were really schooled in Africa. They literally were taught by black scholars and switched it around. No, the 33rd degree isn't the highest degree, and Hannibal will tell you that because he was just talking about 34th and 36th and 96th degree Masons. Um, no, 720 to 8 to 1080, I believe. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, well, you gotta disclaim that it's a joke. You gotta. I'm trying to read your comments and say the same thing. So sometimes I might take things. Nah, bro, I'm agreeing with you. They get the fuck out of here, and was out of them. I said LOL. Well, LOL doesn't necessarily mean a joke. LOL can mean sarcasm now. LOL can mean you're not even laughing. You just saying that to just get people out of your face. Um, but okay, so that's a little bit. I probably, went all over the place, didn't even get to touch upon, some of the stuff that I wanted to touch upon. I know that they are imitating me, the Magi, our priesthood is the source of Freemasonry, yes. So that part aside, that was a lot of the history aspect. I was, getting into the whole aspect. I kind of want to shift gears now because there was something else I wanted to talk about. And Freemasons and the lodges can reach 33. That's where their tassels is tied down. Man, y'all gonna keep me on this subject right here. This is why my lives be going like 2 hours long, 3 hours long. Because there's just so much to just get into and deep into, and this is what I like about it. It's all a discussion that we talk about, right? It's just a discussion. They call our history witchcraft, so we don't study it while they practice it in secret. No, there's no reason to be sorry. And this, I come in here, I come into these lives with like a set things, like I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this, but we end up talking about a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that because the discussion needs to be had. We need a 6-hour live. I came in late. Nah, I cannot go for 6 hours. I will give y'all details on it. Albert Pike found 125 degrees in Egypt. I know it all ties together. Yes, I'm gonna let you finish. But what I'm saying is I'm cool with the conversation being deviated as long as it's deviated to a place of knowledge where like I'm cool with bullshitting, I'm cool with cracking jokes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I want a lot of knowledge to be escaped, and I'm like I said, I'm not a teacher. Pike broke it down to 33 degrees for Scottish Rite. Yes, because when that's the full title of Scottish Rite Masonry. That's the full title. It's hella late here. I'm sorry, Martinez. Again, don't feel obligated to stay on forever. You can always watch the replay. But I feel like replays of lives aren't always fun because you don't get to get in on the conversation, and you kind of just are just watching me talk and read comments. What y'all think about Pike low key though? This study group, exactly. It's a study group. It's a circle. It's church right now, right? Because I'm not sitting here telling you everything out of my mouth is a fact, and this is what you need to listen to. This is what you need to subscribe to, and everything else that anybody else is telling you is bullshit. Like I'm literally telling y'all to do the research yourself, because that's what I be doing. I be doing the research myself. I be reading the books myself and having this discussion with y'all, kind of like putting that narrative out there, because there's so many false narratives, there's so many misconcepted narratives, and there's so much misinformation out there that when you give 100% unequivocal truth, without emotionalism tied to it, you don't get that much of a platform. And that's why when you see all these people going on to these bigger platforms and telling y'all what they believe is truth, right? Because they'll say that, it's not emotionalism, but the first word that come out their mouth is I feel. Well, that's emotional. If you say I feel, that's emotionalism. If you say I think, I believe, that's emotionalism. You got to say what it is, because what it is an opinion. I'm straight. I like how it is. I'd be up anyways. This is constructive as fuck. Having a good conversation. Right. So you'll say, I'll have a debate and it's not emotional, but the first thing that be coming out your mouth is I feel, I think, I don't agree. Like, why don't you agree? Because of your emotions or because of the facts? When you're talking about facts, all you got to say is this is the facts, not I feel this is the facts. If you say I feel this is the facts, you're just kind of trumping your own argument there. Sorry again, Cherub Martinez. Hannibal is so humble. I know Martinez ain't even feeling no type of way, Hannibal. So now that conversation has calmed down, I can kind of deviate into the other one that I want to talk about. I'm going to take this little lull and deviate to the other part, because agreeing makes me have to rethink my outlook. Exactly. And people, some of our people don't know the difference between what is known as and what is inferred. Exactly. So I'm going to go into that whole, and I feel like my conversations have been geared about this lately, about the whole, men-woman situation. But I feel like it has to be said again, because you have all these misconceptions and these false narratives out there about the relationship between men and women, and what our role needs to be, and da-da-da-da. So Barrett sent me an interview with of the Breakfast Club with Amanda Seales. And again, this is not knocking anything against her. She's a bright woman and she says very smart things, but we've been conditioned. What, black men ain't shit? They ain't. They trash. I have a love-hate relationship with my outlook. I can't be at the club at my age trying to pick up other outlooks. At this point in time, if you're, and this is not knocking anybody that goes to the club or anything like that, because, I've frequented clubs before, but you sit there and you sit back and you know what's going on, like how, like, even clubs itself are social engineering, right? Even clubs are social engineering. Islam Moore, what's up? So even clubs are social engineering, where if you sit back, especially if you're sober, right? If you sit back and you just watch everybody, right? It's hilarious. I remember I went to a club out here, and funny thing, club out here is hilarious, right? They they were playing, it wasn't even a throwback Thursday, because they were playing Bodak Yellow, and then right after Bodak Yellow they played T.I. That's how we are. We treat our belief system, we act like they are relationships that they will leave us. Exactly. Or if we take away too much for them, right? If we take away from our belief system, if we say, okay, this part isn't really making sense from our belief system, we completely unsubscribe to that belief system. So they were playing Bodak Yellow, and then right after Bodak Yellow, they were playing T.I. Bring 'Em Out. You went clubbing in Japan, I bet it was lit. I'm a big music fan, right? So for me, and I don't know, Hannibal could probably tell you this. He could probably tell you this more, since he was part of the DJing scene and stuff like that. But for me, your DJ set gotta flow. It gotta flow. Like, if you're doing throwbacks, I can dig it, right? I can dig the throwback vibe, but you gotta be able to flow your throwback. Not only were they playing, I see y'all laughing about the Bring 'Em Out thing, right? Not only were they playing T.I.'s Bring 'Em Out, but and this was our people too. All the good clubs are no GIs, LOL. Are you talking about like no military people? But listen here, they were playing Bring 'Em Out, and they were line dancing, like country type line dancing to Bring 'Em Out, the thong song Yoshinoya's. They were line dancing to bring it out. And I was sitting, yes, I was sitting there like I took out my phone. They were drunk. Everybody was drunk. The whole, yes, it was basically the hokey pokey. They were sitting there, doing some step moves, slap heel, slap foot, side to the side. And I was just sitting here like, yo, and I can't believe, like, the Asian women were getting it. They were like, "Oh, we love this," and then you had the Asiatics doing the same thing, and then you had the Europeans doing the same. And I was just sitting back like, "Yo, this can't be life. This cannot be life." And then right after to bring it out, right after they were line dancing to bring it out, the boy goes and plays the cha cha slide, and I just about lost it. I fell out. I was like, "Yo, are we serious right now? We're playing the cha-cha slide. They can't rock the beat like we can, but they like it. Don't sleep on some of these, especially these Japanese women out here. Hip hop lost its soul. One hop after one hop. Yo, they was literally doing the cha-cha slide, and I was like, yo, am I at a birthday party? I feel like I'm at a birthday party. I feel like I'm at my grandmother or my aunt's birthday party, and they playing the cha-cha slide. And then right after they played the cha-cha slide, they played some Future. And I was like, yo, what is going on with this dude's set? This can't be real. This can't be life right now. I heard the hip hop clubs in Japan is lit though. Well, see, I'm on Okinawa. So in Tokyo it might be lit. Oh yeah, the Japanese women be in the club like they auditioning for, yo, real talk, for Living Color. So I went from one, the DJ had a velour suit on and some slippery earls. I think the DJ, he might have been either Japanese or European. I'm on Camp Foster right now. I was actually outside of Kadena, on Kadena. I don't know if you're familiar with Okinawa, but Gate 2 Kadena. So right outside the base gate, there's a whole strip of, strip clubs and like regular clubs. There's Japanese DJ sound system that come to the Caribbean and clashes people. Some of them know their shit. We flew out of Kadena. Yeah. So yeah, Gate 2 Kadena, mad infamous, right? So that's where I was. So I was going from one club to the other. So I went to the next club spot, which was supposed to be the better one, and they were playing some of the same joints. His set was a little bit better, but I was like, yo, it was like 11 o'clock, during the time, like I can understand when you're playing that songs when it's kind of dead, but during prime time, like 11, 12 o'clock, yo, this dude's playing Jerk. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. And there was people actually jerking, and I was like, yo, I can't. I was like, yo, I can't right now. I gotta go somewhere else. Maybe there's other other spots. The street teriyaki chicken at 2 a.m. It was mad random. But yeah, deviating that aside. So yes, it is social engineering at its finest. When you go to the club, going from inside the club and watching how people interact at the club, because even there I was approached by a guy, and he's like, yo, how you doing? I was like, I'm fine. And it's like, for a woman, you it doesn't matter which way you go. If you sit there and you talk to the person, you being mad polite, you're being mad polite, you're being friendly, you just talking, da da da. Oh yeah, I'm good. How are you? Da 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 da. And then they bring it to, well, who you with? Where you going? Can I get your number? Oh, no, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm married. Da da da. All right, cool. That's cool. Da da da. Why didn't you tell me that before? Well, if I had told you before when you first approached me with the hi, how you doing, when I already know what you coming approaching me for with the hi, how you doing, and I say, oh, I'm married, you gonna think, well, I wasn't asking all that, but okay, da da da. Like, for some reason, we can't win for losing. Anybody Asian in South America is labeled Chino. The struggle is real. They just started the Yellow Lives Matter. I'm gonna go to Japan one day. Then that means I could bust out doing the funky chicken. I bet you could, and it would be lit. You could do the funky chicken, and people would be like, yo, that's that ish right there. So yeah. And then the next dude to approach me, I took that other guy's advice, and he approached me with the hi, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm good, da da, but I'm married. It was an Asian that pulled up on you. No, of course not. It wasn't an Asian. the fake wedding ring in the club thing. It's not fake though. It's not fake. But see, the difference with me, because my wedding ring is loose on me. So I wear it on my right hand instead of my left hand. So he looked at that and was like, yeah, all right, you married, all right, but your ring is on the wrong hand. I'm like, you don't even know why it's on the wrong hand, but doesn't mean that it's fake. It would be magi jewels everywhere. Yes, but yeah, social engineering at its finest. But back to that thing. So many chicks have fake wedding rings and forgot that when they are talking to, yeah, facts. These are facts, right? Because for some reason women like to be like, oh, yeah, I know so many married people that don't wear rings though. Hey, that's on them. I like I said, you can't, whatever works for you works for you. You can't impose what works for you on somebody else, and you can't, do that to somebody else. But anyways, so back to the topic. We're getting all the way off topic. But the man woman thing, the interview that Barrett sent me with Amanda Seales, who is a bright woman, but again, preaching the narrative from kind of somebody who has eyes on her in the industry and who is trying to make her way through the industry. And this is how I saw it, where she was making points, and I'm like, that's kind of going against the other points. So she's talking about Charlemagne and how she knows Charlemagne for a long time, and she knows how he is, kind of giving him an excuse as to his behavior and the way that he comes across. And like I was saying to Barrett, that we look at the Breakfast Club and we expect to get some educational value from it, where we forget that the Breakfast Club is just a gossip talk show. That's what they do. They bring things on there to evoke emotion and gossip about it. So even if you're in there talking about some real stuff, they're going to bring up, well, what do you think about the Kardashians? And that's the role on his yes, his role is a social instigator. He's there to instigate, or a social agitator. He's there to instigate things that will give his show a high rating, right? Because if they were in there talking about some real stuff all the time, nobody would care about the Breakfast Club. You got to go there to get the gossip. Yes, the gossip show talk with sponsors. Exactly. So you got to go there to get the gossip. You got to go there to get the drama, to provoke answers that gets ratings. Exactly. So, and it was funny how she kind of answered, and you could tell that she's a real intelligent woman, but again, subscribing to the, I got a degree from somewhere, so I can drop it like this, but I'm also from the hood, so I could drop it like that. They were talking about, how men kind of see a powerful woman and they automatically think that that's taking power away from them. And I'm just like, yo, who are these men that these women be talking to? Who are these men that don't like natural hair? Who are these men that feel like a woman, getting her own money and speaking out and being empowered is somehow taken away from them? Men don't care. We talking about men don't care. Who are these men? That's what I want to know. Who are these men that see an intelligent woman with opinions and get turned off? I can tell you for a fact that I know 100,000 men. That's an exaggeration as F, but I know a whole bunch of men who not only approached me but commend me for having my own opinion and being intelligent and speaking about stuff other than the typical woman, what she speaks about. I know the lyrics to Slob on My... Listen here. That's not what she said about that part. We're gonna go somewhere else. Mentally weak men think like that. But what they would have you believe is that is the majority of men out here. That the majority of men are misogynistic. The majority of men don't want women to think. The majority of men want you to have fake hair and your makeup done and fake boobs and fake butts. The majority of men Some comedian had a joke about kicking women out of his bed because her toenails weren't painted, saying no straight man cares about what season shoes she has on. Exactly. And it ain't. My husband especially, he doesn't even like this, you would say is like Afrocentric hair, but he doesn't even like when I have extensions in my hair. I want a woman smarter than me, to be honest. You want a woman who's gonna be able to build, like who's gonna be able to build up your family. You can't have no dumb woman help you build up your family. She can't be reigning or be like the empress beside you if she don't got no type of opinion. Like we've all been saying, the women are the lawgivers in the family. The men are the law enforcers in the family. That's why when I didn't recognize it until I heard it. I don't know any man that is turned off by intelligence. I mean, there's probably a few, but you got to look at the intellect of that man, right? So if you're sitting there talking to a man and he's turned off by intelligence, look at his intelligence level and recognize, why are you talking to that man? Why are you talking to the dude that is just dumb? The problem is women like her use her education to fight, and men aren't looking to fight with his woman. She wants to compete with her own team, making her team lose the game. Exactly. So what they said was, oh, I don't either, but I learned to leave you women alone with y'all hair. Thank you, please do. Right, you women are L's and the men are B's in the family. Exactly. And that's, I found it always funny, especially with my husband talking about his son, right, which is my stepson, and always coming to me, y'all are some sharp cherub Moors. I'm proud to be part of this live stream. Hannibal, you making the live stream? Let me tell you that right now. Shoot, if I always broadcasted like, yo, Hannibal be in my live stream, I bet you I have 100,000 people on here talking, wanting to get some gems from Hannibal. And then I'll tell Hannibal, yo, you can't come on my live stream no more. Everybody just coming for you. So, right? So my husband will always come to me and ask me, well, do you think he should have this, or do you think he should be able to do this? And I'm like, why are you asking me? And he's like, because I just want to know. And he didn't say it in so many words, but then after understanding that the women are the lawgivers and the men are the law enforcers, you kind of see it all the time. Well, back in the you dropping gems interest. To be honest, I know women like that. She actually feels entitled because she has a degree but swears she is humble. Seems like Amanda, who is the type. I didn't watch the interview though. A smart woman means if I fuck up, she has my back. A smart woman means, like her, it means if I fuck up, she'll be the first to cut my tendons. See, the thing is, if like with me, right? With my husband, if he does something and I'll be sitting there like, I don't think you should do that. I wouldn't personally do that, but him being a man, and I'm gonna give him that, like, you're gonna do what you're gonna do as the man, and then he'll do it, and then it'll be exactly the way that I said it was, and I'll just look at him like, that's what I said, but I won't say. I just give him that face, and he'll be like, yeah, I know, and I'm like, this is why you should kind of listen to me when I'm telling you things, because I see it in a completely different light. But again, and we see this like on old shows, right, on old family shows, whenever the kids came, it's like, well, what did your mother say? What did your mother say? The difference between it's okay, I got you, and I knew you wasn't shit. Exactly. Like I'll let him make the mistakes, but then if it comes up again, I'll be like, yo, remember the last time that this happened and you didn't listen to me? And then he'll kill slowly, like men tend to do, slowly kind of get into it, like, all right, maybe I can be listened to. Exactly. It's the balance, right? Same with me. And this is the difference between a lot of these women. A lot of these women will be like, see, I told the man he can't do this, I told the man he can't do that, and he don't ever listen, but don't ever take that responsibility or take that accountability on themselves. Like, I'll do a whole bunch of stuff, like we'll just say, with my car, right, I'll leave the headlights on, right, and my car will die. And that's not what happened last time, Barrett. But I'll leave my she wants to be the boss instead of the advisor. Well, this is the difference, right? See, I don't like those type of labels, like the boss or the head. Like, we have to sit there and realize. I think more comedy was the one that gave me this little gem. You got the skull and the brain, right? The skull protects the brain. You can't have one without the other. If you have a brain with no skull, that's not gonna work, because the brain is gonna end up getting damaged. And if you have the skull with no brain, you ain't got no type of unity, right? You ain't got no type of unity. You ain't got no type of balance. So, chill. Our egos need to be quelled sometimes, but give us room to initiate the yeah, I was wrong. Oh, what you talking about? Yeah, and I do, and like when I'm saying, whenever I say these things, it's not coming from an overbearing standpoint of, like, oh, y'all don't ever listen to women. Women is always right. Da, da, da. That's what I mean. It's about a power dynamic rather than teamwork. Exactly. So I like that. I like you putting it like that. Eat too, because you can't have a boss and an advisor and expect them to see themselves as equal, right? But if you have two ruling parties, right? If you have an emperor and an empress, that is equal. There's no, I'm the emperor and then you're just the lord or the duke, right? You're emperor and empress. That's two equal titles. That's two equal standards, and that's how it is inside the household. It's equal standings. So when she said, and this is what disturbed me, and this is where I started to pick apart that interview, is, do you boss your husband when he is doing something dumb, or do you just advise him not to do it? See, like the example I gave, I told, like, I give him, he says something, I'll be like, okay, well, I don't think you should do it like that, or that's not the way you should go about it. But I'll let him go about it because if you don't make the mistake, you won't be able to learn from it, right? If I sit there and continue to tell you, this is how you should do things, this is how you should do things, if I'm not around, then what are you going to do? You have to be able to learn. You have to be able to learn from those mistakes. So he's learned from those mistakes, and he's learned, well, maybe, she's not as incompetent in this. I don't want to say dumb. She's not as incompetent in this area as I expected to be. You broke that video down quick too, by the way. I'm saying, and this is why y'all are Instagram. I'm surprised King is not on here, because King is another one that be sending me videos just to instigate. Stop it, Barrett. Stop it. Stop it. Y'all be sending me videos to instigate my thoughts, and I'd be like, damn, you powering my life. Now I gotta go live today because I got so much I need to be talking about. So yeah, so she said, both her and Angela Yee said something to the effects of, oh, I'm good on my own. I could do this on my own. I don't need you. I want you. I got everything. I got the whole Sunday. You're just the cherry on top of the Sunday. So I'm like, so now we're reducing men to cherries on top of our Sundays. We're reducing them to just, physical wants, where we just want you to be able to talk to us. We just want you as an emotional support. We just want you as a physical being so we can have sex. Wait, so how do we send her videos? I got a whole lineup. We can have live streams for days. You can get with me on Google Hangouts. You could drop it in the comment section, wherever. When people send me videos, I'm always watching it, because, like I said, I don't feel like, I know everything. And if I've seen the video, I'll let you know I've seen the video. And if I haven't seen it in a while, I'll rewatch it, because once you move up in a higher level of consciousness, everything else that you've ever learned before will become new to you, because you're at another level of consciousness where you read what you've read before and you can interpret it completely different from the last time you read it. That's because she only deals with tools. Are you talking about tools like idiots? And that's what I'm saying. We have to recognize the type of men that we're approaching, and 9 times out of 10, Yeah, you have to reread and watch everything. Exactly. Because you can't be narcissistic or so arrogant to believe that after every level up in consciousness, that you're gonna already, understand everything else before. The books that I've read, and Angela Yee obviously got a lot of relationship issues. Irony is that DJ Envy been married for 14 years and C the God been with his wife 4 years. But we don't ever see that aspect of it, right? We don't ever see that when we listen to relationship advice and something like that. Rarely do you ever go to like a relationship advice channel or outlet where you have both the male and the female. Whenever we're listening to relationship advice, it's always strictly from the male. Like when you have King Flex, or how you know him, Tariq Nasheed, giving relationship advice strictly from that male point of view. Or you have women giving relationship advice. I forgot that therapist when she has a show on, like, I think it's MTV or VH1 or one of those, and you get relationship advice from, solely from her perspective. And this is another thing. I'm gonna tell you who is solid, sis. You said what's her face was dope. I feel all situations in the family should be reviewed and agreed upon with both of the partners. Exactly. Instead of one partner making all the decisions, that's the trouble. Yes, that's how trouble starts in the relationship. And you have think like a man, like Steve Harvey says. Yes, but I think Tariq Nasheed was like a Steve Harvey, think like a man on steroids. But to go upon what More Comedy says, that is true, right? But a lot of youth have been conditioned, especially since within the broken family. So my stepson grew up with solely with his mother, right? So he had only one person to go to, and I can tell that he always used emotions to pull upon the string to manipulate his mother. I like Amanda Seales as a funny person or an actor, but I told you her opinion sucked. That's not what you said. You said she dope. Think like a woman and realize he will think like a man. Yes. So he pulls upon the emotions of women to manipulate, and I fell into it, right? I would see his emotional side, and that would connect with my emotional side because I'm a woman. Where he has two parents in the same household, he will try to pit us against each other. Well, I'm gonna ask dad something and get an answer from dad, and then I'm gonna ask mom something and get an answer from mom, and get two different answers, right? When I met up with His Grace, I will make sure we watch this video together tomorrow when we travel. Oh, see, Hannibal, you need to stop it. You killing me. You showering me with the love, Hannibal. Cause the fact that even Taj would even know who I am, it's just like, that's crazy to me. That dude is so emotional, and an emotional people pimp. Yes, yes, and this is what I'm explaining to my stepson, is that pimping is just the small term for manipulation, right? Because that's what pimps do. Taj in the chat. No, that's Hannibal. Hannibal is Taj's son. But the fact that Hannibal shows Taj my videos, that's like, I got butterflies in my stomach. Like, yo, my points need to be on point right now. If Taj is gonna watch, it, and I need to have my points like dot 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 boom. No, I mean thinking of Taj in the chat. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, can you imagine? But yeah. So, and I have to keep explaining to my stepson, like, there's nothing that you tell me that's not going to get back to your father. Same as there's nothing that you're telling your father that's not going to get back to me. And what we have to understand, especially with children these days, because like I said, they're indigo children, they are ready for a new system. And even some of them are living beyond this system, right? So we as parents have to, if we're ever going to discuss something, we cannot discuss it in front of the child. We cannot see the child. We cannot let that's amazing for you to say that. Say what? We cannot let the child see us, even debating anything. Even if we're agreeing on something, we cannot let the child see us as separate, right? We have to let the child see that we are a united front and that this is how families should be, right? You should be the emperor and the empress. You should not be the boss and you know the employee. You should not be the head and the tail. That you are a united front. So whatever you got going on your head, dispel that, because I'm not gonna sit here and override your father, and he's not gonna sit there and override me. You have to have a sidebar, not fight it out in front of them. Exactly. So what we tend to do is send, you're right, children should never see the parents argue. Yes, not even just argue, but discuss. Because back in my day, when my parents were together, anything that was discussed, we weren't a part of that. Baby cherub grabbed the crayon books, especially 1, 2, and 3. My husband's actually buying me some books. I'm gonna make sure I get that list on list to him, because I have a whole list of books that I want. Hopefully, I can get them on Amazon, because I don't know of any other place that ships the books here, ships the books to Japan. But yeah, even with discussions or anything like what we're gonna do, right? We always stayed in the dark as children. So like for his birthday, for example, he didn't think we was gonna do anything for his birthday. He thought we were just gonna go out to eat. Kids are more intuitive than people realize. A scoff gives them all the information they need. Exactly, and he sees that. But again, kids are also more malleable than now more than ever. He gets bombarded with subliminals from school, especially. We forget that especially with kids nowadays, they're spending more time at school than they spend at home. So they're learning all these, attributes from school. So like when, example, he was talking under his breath, and I told him that that's disrespectful. That back in my day, even if I, said, if I didn't even say anything that bad, right? Even if I mumbled under my breath, walking away from my mom, or after my mom had just said something to discipline me, that was taken as disrespectful. And even at that point in time, my mom would smack the fire out of me. So I told him that. I was like, yo, if you was back in my day, if I was doing the same thing that you were doing, my mom would smack the fire out of me. I was like, it's disrespectful for you to say anything under your breath, to talk, whisper to yourself after we've just had a conversation where I had to discipline you. And he says, well, my teacher said for me to talk to myself to kind of calm myself down. And I was just blown away. I'm like, yo, your teachers is setting you up real talk, because you sit here and you do that stuff with your father gonna smack the fire out of you. I'm telling you right now, you need to, if you're gonna say something, say it out loud, say it to where I can hear you. And when I say the discussion is done, the discussion is done. You don't need to talk about it. If you want to talk about it to yourself, talk about it to yourself when you're out of my face. Talk about it to yourself when you're going downstairs to take out the trash. Talk about it to yourself when you're in the bathroom. I was like, if you want to cuss me out in the shower, cuss me out in the shower. That's so passive aggressive. Exactly. You aren't talking to yourself. You're talking to everyone in earshot. Exactly. But he likes to be slick like that. And this is what happens when you don't grow up in a kind of family setting where you have both that male and female energy. If you grow up with the female, you're just gonna pick up that female traits. No matter if it doesn't necessarily mean you're gay or not. You're still gonna pick up that feminine energy, those feminine traits, to deal with your emotions the way that a female would, to deal with the manipulation the way that a female would. Because when you look at men and the way that men manipulate women, I'm just going to say men manipulating women, right? Or men manipulating an object. Oh, the kids who think they are the first to pull what they pull. Exactly. Let's change the vibration, call them yes, sorry. I keep saying kids. And and I don't know if y'all be watching me in these videos, but you'll see me hesitate when I say kids. I'll say baby or something like that, or children or something like that. But yes, Hannibal is so right. Kids are baby goats. Yep, it's grown men out here like that. Exactly. to where they pick up the feminized way of how to deal with their emotions, and pick up the feminized way of how to respond emotionally, when men can only respond the way that men respond emotionally. We can't expect men to respond emotionally the same way that women would respond emotionally. Same as my stepson, I can't like, he's been responding emotionally the way that he has because he hasn't had his father in his life for an extended amount of time due to the issues, with his mom and everything. But slowly we're trying to change that course, right? We're trying to and I keep telling him, like, I'm trying to prepare you. The things that I'm telling you is not just for us to be living in your yes, we fight that word daily, and just like we fight the word black and white daily, just like we fight all these labels that we're sitting there, and we sit there and say without knowing, because these words are literally curse words. So yes, Hannibal, thank you for checking me on that. Micah, being a little crazy. My house is a mess right now. I'm gonna tell y'all that. Right now, my house. Terrible Twos has started so early. Terrible Twos has become terrible 19 months. Can men respond emotionally as men would? But see, you conquered black. Congratulations, Barrett. See, I still say the word black to people who don't have the concept of what black is, but definitely of concept. I've been able to say so-called black people every time that I say, and people will be like, why are you saying so-called blacks? Because, and then that's when I'll dive into the whole more thing, right? But I still say black, but I put the so-called or the quotations in front of them. I definitely conquered so-called white people, right? I say that European, and that's so our people are so-called, yes, so-called. And the European is easy. It's a European, right? Conquering them, like, I'll say European or I'll say troglodyte. Thanks to Taj, I say troglodyte. Remember, y'all, I'm a hypnotist. I know the power of words. I will teach y'all this science. See, I'm waiting on Hannibal to drop his I'm subscribed to you, Hannibal. I'm waiting for you to drop the lives. I taught you how to FaceTime. I got to teach you how to go live now. Cause Hannibal really be dropping me, like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll see like 100 messages from Hannibal, like you need to read this and you need to do this, and this is like, yo, damn, I got so much information from him. It's crazy. I say black because of the people I talk to. Most of us are in the honeymoon phase with the word. No doubt, that would be so dope. Yes, but even still, what we have to understand is these words have power. These words have power over us, and these words put us into spells. So us saying, oh, I'm black, kind of just reaffirms like all the negative aspects of what black is, right? It reaffirms all the negative aspects of black. So black slavery, black, black is the devil, black is evil, black is this. So we kind of subliminally always reaffirm. That's what I'm saying. Our conscious mind is not mostly in control. It's our subconscious mind that's mostly in control, especially during our sleep and especially during the wake time. And that's how hypnotists work, right? Hannibal, correct me if I'm wrong. Hypnotists attack the subconscious mind because that's where things would stick, not in the conscious mind. So, yes, back to the issue with Amanda Seales. So she was just saying a lot of stuff that goes against, like, I'm so Black Pride and Black Panther, I'm a Black Panther this, I'm a Black Panther that. But when it came to the effect of her being in Russell Simmons' office and Russell Simmons making a pass at her, where if any other person would have made a pass at her, she would have called them out on it. But just simply because it was Russell Simmons and she had an agenda to film at that at his apartment or at his office or whatever, our people make slaves and Negro colored and black synonymous with each other. You have to watch certain publications on history too. Exactly. So she was saying how, she didn't say anything to Russell because, she felt some type of way, but she was in the certain office. She didn't want to put him on Front Street and da da da. When you're going against this whole women empowerment thing, this Me Too, the feeling that we should be able to speak out without fear of repercussion. But in the same sentence, you're giving a pass to Russell Simmons because you need his office space. Yes, 98% of what you do is subconscious. Only 2% of what you do is conscious. Boom, facts. Screenshot that. That's about to be my tagline. Boom, facts. Screenshot that. So she was saying all this, and then she completely blew off Russell Simmons, or let him have a pass because it's Russell Simmons and she needed an agenda from him. Comparing men to the cherry on top of a sundae. Just a whole bunch of things, bringing up this whole rape culture thing where rape is not a culture, rape is an action. That's not a culture. The whole cultural aspect of it is what we've been, she needed him. Exactly. She needed him in her corner. She had an agenda, like most of these people do. They have an agenda. So that's why they're going to do the things and say the things that they do. Like I said, if it was some regular ass person who said that, she would have, well, I'm not going to deal with this. I don't care about needing the office space, because it was Russell Simmons, and because she knew him, and because she had this certain thing to do, and because she didn't want to put him on Front Street on blast. Like, it's completely contradictory to your whole, I'm black. If you were a Black Panther wouldn't care whether it was Russell Simmons or, Tyrone. The Black Panther wouldn't care. The Black Panther would stand for what the Black Panther did. So just because you're wearing your hair in a fro and wearing some type of African print, that makes you Black Panther. That makes you, so-called powerful and women empowerment, when your actions is what makes you women empowerment. She said another thing that was so-called problematic, right? Where she's talking about, having sexual relations and being pressured to do things as women, where that is not invalid. And I'm gonna tell y'all a story after this. That is not invalid, right? And she said that as women, feel obligated to have sexual intercourse with somebody just to get it over with, just to get the situation over with. Where I think they were talking about a man eating her out or something like that, and so she felt obligated to give him some sex, where and the eating, the head was trash, is what she said. The head was trash, so I just felt obligated to give him sex to kind of end the situation. Where I said to Barrett, like, yo, and I've been in this situation too, where a dude is like, oh, I'm gonna eat you out, I'm gonna give you some head, and the head is trash. I'm not even gonna let you continue. Like, at that point in time, you're basically just messing up my pH balance down there. Is she giving him some sex? Wow. So money was worth more than her dignity. Exactly. And what people think, oh, she's so empowered, and they miss these kind of little subliminals where she's actually telling you about herself, just like she's telling you about herself, where she's gonna give the man some sex because he gave her head and she feels obligated to. Where if that was happening and your head is trash, your head game is trash, and I'm gonna be like, all right, well, it's time for you, wrap this up, I gotta go, wash this. Do we blame the women whom allow men to get away with that type of behavior, or the man feeling comfortable with that presence? So I'm gonna touch upon this right now, right? And especially in regards to rape culture. So when I was, I would say 15 years old, I was raped myself. And a lot of the time, when it first happened, I blamed myself. For putting myself in that situation, for dressing the way that I dressed at being 15 years old, for not listening to my father about, not going out at a certain time, about not going to certain areas, or going with people to certain areas who I don't really know like that. So it was a dude who probably, I was 15, he had to be like 30. He had to be 30 years old. And again, this is not me saying that it's solely the women. It's solely the women's fault, because as a 30-year-old man, you're obviously preying on me as a 15-year-old girl, because I'm not at that mindset. At that mindset, my eyes are wide open. Everything looks glitter and glam. How would a man know the sex is unwanted? We gonna yes, that part that what he said. Yes, that part at what he said. We're gonna go there, right? We're gonna go there. So at this point in time, really comfortable, and I told him I wanted to leave, and he was like, "Nah, chill, just for a little bit. Don't be like that." Da, da, da. And again, as a 15-year-old girl, it's like you're kind of not obligated, but you know, you don't want you want it. You're saying I'm 15 years old, I'm mature. You want to be looked at that way, but then when you feel like a 15-year-old girl, or you feel like a child, you know what I'm saying, and you kind of show that, then it's like I'm kind of contradicting myself when I'm saying I'm mature enough. But we have to understand, even as 15-year-old girls, we're not grown women. You know what I'm saying? And it's clear by that fact. Exactly. You want to be seen as an adult, but you're not an adult. And it was clear by the incident that I had put myself in that I was an adult, because if I was a grown woman and if I was a grown adult, I would have been like, all right, well, I don't care if you want to take me home or not. Mind you, I was on a whole other side of the city. I don't care if you want to take me home or not. I'm gonna go home myself. I obviously didn't do that, and I had kept myself in that situation. These nonverbal cues are it doesn't matter, right? And even the verbal cues don't matter, because I said no. I said I don't want to do this. I said I didn't want to do it. So, but it still happened. Again, those are the men. But again, if you are with somebody who's not predatory, who's just a really horny boy, if you've given him nonverbal clues, he's not gonna pick up on those nonverbal clues. You have to be verbal about it. There's no if answer. There's like I've come to the point where I'm able to talk about this because it is the truth, and a lot of people don't want to talk about or take the accountability about it, right? Again, this is not taking anything away from him, because he was a scumbag, he was a dirtbag, and this dumbass actually like couple of months later came to my house looking for me or some shit like that. And my ex at the time, like my boyfriend at the time, like really went out there and had like a real nigga story conversation. Stories like this always get my blood boiling. I dislike that very much when people take advantage of the weak. Exactly. But again, had I listened to my father, who told me you should not be out at this time being a girl, because again we start, oh, I'm a girl, it doesn't matter if I'm a girl or a boy, I'm mature, I'm 15 years old, I could do this, I could do that. Had I listened to my father, I would have not put myself in that situation. And again, this is what women don't realize when people telling them that you're putting yourself in this situation when you're doing certain things or when you're dressing a certain way. I can pick up nonverbal cues, but I remember a rape case in Hollywood where the woman said she was smiling. It wasn't a nervous smile, and she consented. That would be hard from some guys. We need to allow the divide of allowing yourself to be convinced into it and being strong-armed into it to come to the surface. We see people treating a persistent ass like being treated. Yes, exactly. So we keep like, and this happens a lot, and this is what Amanda was kind of saying, like, oh, he ate my pussy, so I feel obligated to give him some punani, where okay, that's kind of given way to this whole rape culture thing, because men feel like, or these type of men, I'm not gonna say men as a general statement, but these type of men feel like if I'm persistent enough, she's just gonna give it up. I think your father wasn't thinking about you being attacked, but you being convinced to partake. If he was worried about you being attacked, he would have been in the car with the gun. But see, like this is the thing, right? I was so hard headed at that time. It didn't matter what my father said to me, that I was still gonna do it anyways. And my father wasn't aware about me leaving. That's the thing. Like I think I left earlier when he wasn't home or something like that. I had left earlier and then went on about the day and then ended up meeting with the dude there. And so yeah, that happened, and we have to be able to take accountability for the part that we play in it, and not this is not discrediting women saying that the men don't have their role, because again, like I said, the man was 30 years old and he was preying upon a 15 years old because he knew of the mind state that I had at being 15 years old. We was all stupid at that age, but that 30-year-old should be shot. Exactly. And that's what my boyfriend at the time, kind of made a statement towards. He was in the grimy, he was a grimy dude. Like my boyfriend, not grimy as bad, but like grimy, like in the streets grimy. Not from the streets. He was in the streets grimy, and he would definitely have done that if I hadn't told him to, chill out. You don't gotta do that. Da, 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 da. And mind you, this was some like maybe like a year or two, because this was 2005, and I was with my boy. Yeah, so this had to be like a year or two after the fact. He had came back to my house. So my boyfriend was like, "Yo, if you ever come back here again, that's it's over for you." So he was in the street looking for a hard-headed girl he could take advantage of. Exactly. As a matter of fact, it's been so long, and I had blocked out that part of how the hell I even came into contact with the dude, because at that time it wasn't like, Facebook was around and I was able to Facebook him and we met up off of Facebook. I actually don't even remember how he came about. But I know at that time I was running the streets like I was grown. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying before, I was going to all these different hoods thinking I'm tough and all this stuff like that, where in actuality I had set myself up for that. I had set myself up for that position. And again, this is not taken away from the fact that in those type of situations, men hold a lot of the responsibility. But again, if I had listened to my dad, if I stayed my fast ass in the house, if I did all these things, I wouldn't have experienced that. I wouldn't have experienced that. So we have to kind of be real careful about this whole rape culture thing when we kind of let it slide. Like again, if the man is persistent with the let me do it, and dude is like 45 now. Shit's crazy. He probably has a daughter too now. Whether he does or he doesn't, it's like I don't even think of him until now. I don't even think of those type of situations until somebody brings up this whole rape culture thing, and he wasn't picking up the nonverbal cues, and if he kept persisting about me doing it, I was just gonna do it anyways just to get it over with. When you're saying I should lock my car door, but not doing so, does that mean it's exactly? But see, if you had locked your car door, let's assume that windows can't be broken, right? So if you lock your car door, right, would your stereo have been stolen? Again, the whole thing, the person who's stealing it is still a thief. They are still wrong. But we can make prevention. Exactly. It played a role in it. We all play our role. We all play our part, and we have to take accountability. So we're projecting this whole, it's okay for me to be a slut. It's okay for me to be naked, and just assume that men are gonna have to hold their penises in their hand and not do anything about it. Where if I keep saying no, 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 but on the 50th time I say yes, all those no's behind that 50th time you're saying yes go out the window because you still said yes. So just like with Amanda Seales, if you're not feeling comfortable, if you're feeling uncomfortable with the way Russell Simmons was treating you, then you should talk to Russell Simmons the same way you would talk to some regular dude. You doing that is just giving Russell Simmons a pass to do it to the next person. I always treat women as I would like someone to treat my daughter if I ever had one. Not gonna lie though, I was savage in my teens. No, but we should have D control even when women is half naked. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that men shouldn't have control. What I'm saying is that we have to recognize that we both have accountability. We both have accountability, because when that happened to me, every day afterwards when I was dealing with it, I kept saying, why didn't I stay in the house? Why did I have to go out? Why did I have to go out? If I stayed in the house, that wouldn't have happened. Again, this is not saying that he wasn't wrong. But I know that even at a young age that I had accountability in that action. I had to be accountable for my actions of what I pulled there. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been there. If I didn't go out, I wouldn't have been there. Yes, we all should have accountability. Exactly. The men should be able to restrain themselves, and if you have to teach nonverbal cues, okay, but you should be, again, what she's saying about the conversation about men having control is a common conversation. She is saying that conversation about women having control is just exactly because we always want to put it onto the men when it's not always the men in the situation. Like I said, a woman will say 49 times no, but the 50 times, if he's still asking you the 50 times, you say yes, then all those no's goes out the window. All those no's goes out the window because you consented. You said yes. You broke down. The whole point of the Me Too movement is saying that you should be able to say that you're uncomfortable, to say it to matter, no matter, like I said, no matter if it's Russell Simmons or if it's Tyrone down the street, it should be the same. It shouldn't be that, oh, it's Russell Simmons, I'm just going to let it go, or I know him from so long, so I'm just going to let it go, because that's what a lot of things happen. A lot of these incidents happen because we know somebody, we chill with somebody around the block all the time, and I don't want to put it like that. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable every time we're in a circle together, so I'm just going to let it slide. Okay, women will say no 49 times, and when you say okay and stop, she would say, why'd you stop asking? And this is the thing, though. This is the thing. This is the whole backwards thing, right? This is the whole backwards. This is the whole, and a lot of women won't address that. A lot of women won't address that, like, oh, I like to be chased, but you can't be thirsty. You can't be, too aggressive, but you can't be a bitch. It's like, you you kind of making it hard for these men to kind of be men. It's crazy how creepy dudes we look up to are behind closet doors in the industry. Exactly. And she talked about, oh, a lot of these rappers were like that, but if it was like that, why are you letting them get around, or why are you letting that be close to them? Because this is the whole part of the movement. We are kind of bending over backward to let these men be comfortable in what they're doing because we don't want to ruffle too many feathers. And at the same time, we have women talking about, well, you should be able to say that. Men make us uncomfortable. We shouldn't be uncomfortable to do this and to do that. And at the same time, you have women who are perpetrating, men making it at the same time, it's some of the same women making it okay for men to do this while you're preaching a different. So what is it? Is it the status? Is it the man's status? Is it what he can do for you? Is it your agenda? What you're trying to accomplish? Is this what determines whether you say that it's a rape case versus you saying that it's consent? Is it a rape case now when, like, I don't know if y'all know about this because I only recently heard about it, but a girl talking about Tupac raped her back in 1994. Like, what is your agenda now? Do you want a book? Do you want a movie? Like, why didn't you come out in 2000 or in 1994? Why didn't you come out in 1994 when it happened to talk about it? Bill Cosby's cases, why are y'all waiting this long? African Bambaata's cases, why are y'all waiting this long? And then complaining that the statute of limitations is up, where you could have spoke about it right then and there. So you always have to understand that these people, where these conversations are valid. Shut up, Barrett. Shut up. Yeah. So you wait, however many years till he passes for you to be like, oh well, Tupac raped me. Well, how are your pockets looking right now? What are your pockets looking like? Are they a little empty? That's what she said. She said Tupac raped her. I think it is the fact that at a certain level, few women say no. Bill Cosby could literally have any woman he wanted. How many women didn't come out as victims? And that's why all these people are talking about, have to be like Dave Chappelle said, they have to rethink every sexual advance they've ever did and be like, Tupac is a Gemini. He didn't. Shut up. So no Geminis can rape, right? One of the women accusing Weinstein says she stayed on the phone with him for 2 hours while he. That's what Chappelle said, right? Or how this woman talking about Russell Simmons raped her. What's the matter, Nugget? Talking about Russell Simmons raped her, but she went back to do another interview with him, or she wanted something else from him, right? Because they want something. He raped her, but she went back a second time because he said that he's gonna fund her movie or something like that, fund her documentary. So we have to be able to be accountable for our actions, both sides, men and women. We do talk a lot. All right, so as y'all can hear, it's about nap time for the Nugget. So I'm gonna cut this short. Why you can't hang up while someone is on the phone? I'm gonna have to go because somebody getting cranky. He ready to go to sleep. His face. Look at your face, Nugget. Bill Cosby case. They didn't tell y'all he paid a lot of their college degrees and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Y'all can talk, boy. But all right, so he already trying to get up under my shirt. He ready to go. I'll probably continue this conversation this weekend. It's Friday for me now, so probably Sunday morning. You know what's funny? I saw a video of yours, and I recommended, hey, the one on Walgreens. All right, Nugget. So, all right, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna see y'all some other time before he strip me on this live feed. Peace and love to y'all. Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed the talk, subscribe and hit the notifications. All right, Nugget, I'm leaving.